Hi everyone, and welcome into the Writers Roundtable. I'm Taylor Stern, joined by Nick Eatman, Rob Phillips, and Brian Broaddus. Last time we talked to you guys, we were talking about some predictions, some early thoughts that might happen for the first few days of free agency. But now that we've seen what has actually happened and transpired, Brian, I'll start with you. Was there anything that shocked you or surprised you?
No, not really. And I feel like, though, when you look at this football team, they had a large number of free agents, 21 of them to be exact. And, you know, my theory really on this free agency thing is, though, they're losing guys, but my plan and their plan should be to replace them with better players. And I think that's going to be the case. I think the guys that they've gone out and got, though, that we saw yesterday with the signings that they made, I think you've upgraded at a couple of different spots. The draft will help them. So I feel like, though, losing these guys, I'm not as worried as most people are about what's going on here.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of these new signings that would be the new defensive end, DeMarcus Ware, a new corner in Nolan Carroll.
Right.
Who else am I missing here? Rob, help
Stephen
me
Paia.
out. Stephen Paia, defensive tackle. Kind of
Yeah.
fills that Terrell McClain spot.
Yeah, and I think it's not a surprise what they did, Tay, when you think about it, because what they do every year, what they've done this year, is they sign guys to these cap-friendly deals that fill holes for the team, but don't necessarily preclude them from drafting a guy at that position, or it gives them flexibility with the draft coming up. Not necessarily are they locked into a certain position now, so they can draft as purely as possible, is what Jason Garrett always says. If there's one surprise that for me, it's Terrence Williams being back. I thought the market would be too strong for the Cowboys necessarily, and you saw they've let some guys go because of the money they got. Ron Leary comes to mind, Barry Church comes to mind, but getting Terrence back is big for this offense.
Yeah, you've seen Terrence's career this whole time.
Yeah.
Do you think that hints at anything that they might be able to do with Mo Claiborne or other guys like Brandon Carr?
Well, I think the Nolan Carroll move probably makes sure that one of those two guys isn't coming back. And I still think Carr has a chance to come back. Mo, you know, he's been talking to some other teams here. You know, he might be on the move there. But just like Rob said, you know, a move like Carroll, it just kind of tides them over a little bit. If cornerback is the best spot for them in the draft at 28 or in the second round, they're going to go over that route. So Nolan Carroll, Stephen Paia, DeMarcus Ware, good enough to maybe play and plug in right now. Not going to keep them from drafting that position in the draft.
I will say this, though, about Moore, and you know he's been really an underachiever, third-round pick out of Texas A&M. But you watch his Seattle tape. In that scheme, which is very similar, it's not the players are the same, the scheme is the same. DeMonte Moore, he had a very good year for Seattle. And you know what, they've just got a lot of guys that they have to use on their defensive line that they couldn't bring him back. I think Dallas might have stole one here. Here's a local guy that has been an underachiever, but you watch him play in that scheme, very similar to what he has here. There was some productivity in watching him play. He could help this football team.
Yeah, and we're talking about DeMontre Moore as well, who is a new defensive end. He shared yesterday that DeMarcus Ware was one of his biggest inspirations, the reason that he decided to play pass rusher. I mean, Nick, Rob, Brian, you guys all saw DeMarcus Ware's time here. Can you just explain briefly what kind of impact he made as a Cowboy?
Well, I mean, DeMarcus was brought in 2005 with Bill Parcells, when Parcells drafted him to try to help and see if they could make this transition in a couple of years to the 3-4, and he did it right away with some of the other guys that they added. But DeMarcus was just, I mean, Rob and I were probably standing next to each other back at training camp when he did that drill around the hula hoop or whatever you want to call it.
You've talked about it before.
I mean, it was an unbelievable player. He was a great guy, all-time leading, sacker here in Cowboys history. Just a phenomenal player. Just like Witten and Romo, you wish that they could have had more success, but he actually did get it.
As talented as he was, and you described that really well, I'd say the durability and the fact that his teammates could always count on him. He missed 3 games in 9 seasons with the Cowboys, and then played another 3 years with Denver, got them to a Super Bowl. That game in 2009 always stands out for me. Carted off the field against San Diego, and 6 days later comes back with the neck strain. Plays limited amount of snaps and then gets the deciding sack for the Cowboys. To me, that kind of sums up what he meant as a mentally and physically tough player for the Cowboys.
Never forget the fight that the scouts had with Bill Parcells over this player. And, you know, if you look at him and Sean Merriman, Bill wanted Sean Merriman. There was no question about that. Bill was carrying a big stick in that draft room too, and he was trying to beat us over the head with it. But the scouts stood firm on that one. Jerry Jones had to make a difficult decision. Decision wasn't actually made till the morning of the draft. Bill Parcells was pouting until he got Marcus Spears. But I'll tell you what, there were a lot of high fives in that room. DeMarcus Ware was everything that we thought he was going to be as a football player, and the scouts and the coaches, and that's the way it went down right there. And I was proud to be a part of that because the argument was good.
The first game he ever played up in Seattle, he had a diving interception. You know,
that's normal.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
he's supposed to be playing a pass rusher. Can he even make this 3-4 outside linebacker transition? He makes a diving interception. I think he had 2 sacks against Walter Jones, a great tackle for Seattle. And Parcells says in the fellas, let's not put him in Canton yet, okay? Well, Bill, I think we're getting close to be able to do that.
About 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Get ready for that one. Yeah.
He will be going to Canton, and we're seeing these other guys retire, different things like that happening. Stay tuned for all things free agency, other offseason events on DallasCowboys.com. Thank you so much for watching.